radio host Steve Potter, next on City Corner. Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome to City Corner. Last week, longtime radio host Steve Potter hosted his last show on St. Louis Public Radio, and today he joins us to talk about the highlights from his career at St. Louis Public Radio, a 16-plus-year career, as well as his 34-year career in radio, and we're going to get into all types of good stuff. But let's first welcome you to the show. How does it feel to be sitting on the other seat?
Why are you laughing before I've said anything?
Because it's nice to have, you're being interviewed. I mean, how does it feel to actually be the one being interviewed this time?
It's weird. It's only happened to me a couple of times in my career, and I'm kind of uncomfortable every time. It's a whole different thing. You know, people always have given me compliments over the years about, oh, it must take a lot to interview people. But I think it's harder to be a guest.
Yeah.
Because
when you're hosting it, you can just guide the questions.
You don't have to answer anything.
Answer it. Now you're on the spot, especially
Right.
when we're talking about you personally, not, and your career. So how does it feel? Last week was your last week. How was that?
An emotional roller coaster.
Was it?
I always have trouble with transition, whether they're good or bad. Mm-hmm. And since I'm going to be doing something in my future, I don't know what. Mm-hmm. So the transition period between wrapping up something you've done for a long time, doing nothing, and trying to figure out what you're going to do in a couple months is, it's not good for a person that likes everything planned out.
I mean, I can imagine so many people too are like used to just hearing your voice. You're such a regular in other people's lives as well, and that's got to feel the impact too of knowing just how other people won't necessarily hear you or people that you won't be in touch with.
I don't know how you feel, but when you're on the air, I never really picture people listening, and sometimes even though I've worked places that have had very big audiences, it's almost like I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
And then when I get feedback like that, it's like, wow, you listen and you actually think about me. And it might sound stupid for me to say, but really it's kind of a surprise.
I think with St. Louis Public Radio, with NPR stations really nationally and across the country, they have that kind of audience base and listeners.
Audiences are very loyal and they feel emotionally. I had a lady, Friday, my last day, a lady I didn't know called me from Florissant, and she was so sweet, but she was like crying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're going to keep this fun and upbeat because you have a lot of fun and upbeat. Well, let's start off with photos. We have a photo from your last day. You got a cake, Steve. You have
you have that?
Was that you're going away?
Well,
we do have the photo.
Actually.
A cookie cake. Oh, is it a cookie or a cake?
Yeah.
Hold on, we'll take a look at it.
That was a surprise, and it was. We have 3 floors at the St. Louis Public Radio, and everybody that's on the air is up on the 3rd floor. That's where the studios are. And they just called me in, and you can't see it, but there were about 30 people there. And they had that cookie for me and some other little stuff. And I thought I was just going to have a really quiet day and leave, and it was kind of sad, and they kind of made my day there.
And that made your day. So we got to go back. We're going to take it all the way back because you were at 16 years at St. Louis Public Radio.
But I want to make a point too that I got a late start in this business compared to most people.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Boy, I wish most people I know in radio started like in high school or when they were teenagers doing small stuff, and in college. I didn't get into radio till I think I was 28.
Yeah. I mean, but that seems. We've got a picture. Hold on. Let's start.
No, the first picture is before radio.
That's before radio. So what is this? Is it's made its rounds on social media. It's you.
Yes, that's me.
Give us some background on this.
Well, that's 1980. I started college as an art major. I changed to political science, and then I worked like for a United States Senator in D.C., and I was a legislative aide for the President Pro Tem of the Kentucky State Senate, and I thought I was going to go into politics. I did that for a few years and hated it. I dropped out, waited tables, and modeled. And that's what that picture is from. I was trying to decide what to do. And I did that for 4 or 5 years before a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, I want to be on radio. So I went back to college, changed my major.
Yeah. Why did you want to be in radio?
I didn't really figure it out until a couple of years ago. I never thought about performing in front of anyone on stage or anything. I was always petrified. I couldn't even speak in public until later in life. But I remembered, my dad was an executive for this big company, and we moved about every 5 years. So I went to grade school in Toronto and on the Jersey Shore. And I remember distinctly when we lived on the Jersey Shore in Middletown, New Jersey, about 40 minutes south of New York City. I was, it would have been the mid-'60s, I was 10, 11. I guess my bedtime was 9 o'clock or something, but I used to, and my parents would make me go to bed, but I hid a tiny battery transistor radio under my pillow. And I would listen to the New York City talk radio stations late at night.
Wow.
And I never remembered that till recently, and I think it goes all the way back to then.
Really?
Listening to talk radio late at night, and then it was in the back of my mind for the next 20 years.
Yeah. How would you describe? We've got some photos of you just at the station, and
Well, you have a photo here of my first radio job.
Oh, okay. Let's take a look. One of our old time photos.
Yes, it's the
old time. Can I call that? Is that
Yes.
insulting?
After
to call it old time.
After I graduated from Missouri State and worked in Springfield, Missouri for a while, I got a job in Richmond, Kentucky, being the news director at an AM/FM country station. And this is a photograph from when I worked there. And when I showed, everyone thinks that I'm the lead singer in a 1980s band.
But meanwhile, you were really working at a country radio,
Yeah.
country music station. Do you know a lot about? Did you know?
So
about
I was 29 there. It was my first radio job.
Got it. First radio. And then we cut to some images that we'll show while we talk of you now. I mean, what would you? I think I listen to you all. Would listen to you all the time. And I mean, how do you describe your style? I mean, you're very at ease. It seems so natural for you when you're interviewing
Style's not
people.
something you plan out or think about.
How would you describe it though? if
Well, all I know is
someone
what
said-
other people say. People always say stuff about that I'm relaxing sounding. When I worked at KMOX as a news anchor, I remember, I forget who it was, one of the big names came up to me one time, and they said, I really like your voice on the air, Steve, because you do a traffic report. They said there could be semis on fire, cars falling off bridges, but you listen to Steve, everything's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
It's soothing. I'd say soothing and informative. And your interviews are very, I mean, you really have, I think it's a very easy way of getting at details from people, what I've noticed over the years. Like you'll ask just sort of a question, but you're really able to kind of extract, I think, from people. Would that be accurate? I kind of noticed that
I think I
over
know
the
where
years.
you're getting at. Well, my philosophy is, number one, I'm never like intimidated, nervous or anything like that, so I'm very comfortable. And the way I picture it is just like I'm sitting around my kitchen table at home talking to someone, and that's how I feel when I do it.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you've done, I mean, gosh, so many interviews, some celebrity interviews that we, of course, had to plug to, to make the show, to kind of give those highlights. So, I mean, Caroline Kennedy, you got more?
Well, I went through, can I show you something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Last week on St. Louis on the Air, which is our talk show, they decided they wanted to interview me about my career, so I did a segment with Don Marsh. So we were going to pull some clips from interviews I did. So I had my producer, I hosted the Cityscape Arts and Culture Show there for 11 years. They went away about a year ago, year and a half ago. So we were going to find out some clips that interested me that we could play. So Mary printed up all the guest segments I'd done on my 11 years in Cityscape.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. So these are all different shows. But look at this. And I had to approximate. These are 98 pages. Anyway, it comes out to approximately 1,274 segments that I did.
Wow.
But there were 1 to 3 guests on every segment.
Yeah.
So if there were only 2 guests on every segment, I did over 2,500 interviews.
Oh,
It's
wow.
probably more than that.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't until I saw this on paper,
Yeah.
I said, I interview all these people?
And you probably forgot about so many of them too.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, I interviewed and with someone really important.
Well, I went through there and thought the most well-known guests I interviewed, so
Yeah.
I wrote some down. And it's amazing because I don't really think of it. And like if you'd asked me who are the famous people you've interviewed, I'd probably think of 3 or 4 and couldn't
Yeah.
remember. So a few minutes ago I went through this. You want to hear a couple?
Sure.
Michael York,
Uh-huh.
Della Reese, Lynn
Oh,
Redgrave, Andy Cohen, Angelina Jolie, George Hamilton, Caroline Kennedy, Connie Stevens, Chick Corea, Jimmy Webb, Robert Duvall, Al Jarreau, Ann Rice, Ridley Pearson, Jane Smiley, Estelle Parsons, Mike Birbiglia, John Waters, Malcolm McDowell. I got a couple more.
You've got more.
Tom Wopat, John Lithgow, Paula Poundstone, Ricky Skaggs, Ira Glass, Wynton Marsalis, Mary Engelbreit, Elaine Vietz, Calvin Trillin, Mo Rocca, Christine Brewer, Fred Schneider, Tony Kushner, Hal Holbrook, Jennifer Holliday.
Yeah.
And that's just some of them.
It's just some of them. I know. I was going to say, I know because I've heard some more that you listened to. We've got some images too. Caroline Kennedy, that was one.
That's one of those ones, some I hardly remember. There's one thing from that I do remember. There's the little things. Caroline Kennedy, what an icon, right?
Right.
And when some well-known people would come in, they'd have an entourage with them. They'd be driven by somebody. They'd have 2 two press people. It'd be like, you know, the President of the United States was coming to the studio. So I was wondering when Caroline Kennedy was going to be a guest, I thought, oh, this might be worse than all of them. I mean, she probably has an 8-car security detail I didn't know. She walks in all by herself.
Wow.
She was promoting she wrote a book about children's stories I think her parents had taught her as she was growing up. All by herself, not even meet Caroline Kennedy, just walks in with a little bag. And her press person failed to send the book or something. I didn't have her book. So she went out to her car to get it.
Wow.
I mean, it was a 7-minute walk back to the parking lot. I was at UMSL campus. I was like, Caroline Kennedy.
Like,
I sent Caroline Kennedy out to the parking lot.
In St. Louis to go grab an extra copy of her book. Kathleen Turner, another one.
Oh, I had a really fun talk with her because she was here. She was doing a play at the Rep.
I remember that.
Whenever that was, 5 or 6 years ago. And you know her voice and everything, the English accent. She's just so exotic. And she actually grew up on a farm by her grandparents in Springfield, Missouri, which is where I went to high school.
Really?
So I'll never forget Kathleen Turner, of all people. I mean, you think of her so intimidating. I sat there and talked to her about. I never thought I'd be talking. This was off the air to Kathleen Turner about little things in Springfield, Missouri. Not my image of Kathleen Turner.
I do remember that she was from Missouri, but I didn't know that that's where you were from, or that you had spent time there. And Jennifer Holliday's another one. You mentioned her both on your list, and so how was that?
I love Jennifer Holliday. Well, number one, it's really fun to interview people that you're a fan of to begin with, which isn't everybody. And I always really liked her from the time she was in the Weather Girls before she became an individual star. But the funny story there is, you know that back when she was in the Weather Girls and early in career, she was very heavy, like obese. I don't mean that rudely.
No, I remember.
But she was very big. By the time I met her, it was a big deal. It was on the news. She had really slimmed down to, it was a big deal. I think she lost 200 pounds or 300 pounds, whatever it was. So she was at the Chase Park Plaza, and we were going to record the interview before the show. And we were getting ready to go, and they'd had some function at the radio station where there was food. And sometimes when there's leftover food, they have it in the kitchen for employees. And I was in there, and they had gooey butter cake. I said, you know, the history of gooey butter cake, you know, started in St. Louis. Sometimes if you're not from St. Louis, you don't even know what it is.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to take her a piece of gooey butter cake and welcome her to St. Louis. So I did. We did the interview. I gave it to her. She was very excited, said she was going to try it, and, you know, off she goes. And I thought later, you know, she didn't know me from Adam. It wasn't wrapped. It was a piece of gooey butter cake on a paper plate with a napkin over it. She probably threw it away, right? So you're going to eat something some stranger gave you like that. So I thought about that for weeks. And then I ran into some executives from the community, and we were talking. I just happened to mention it. Like, oh, I'd given, because, you know, she did that.
Yeah.
She was here to do her last performance of Dreamgirls. I said, I gave Jennifer Holliday some gooey butter cake. And they went, oh, she can never stop talking about it. I went, what? They said after she ate what you gave her, she sent us out for more the next day. And then a couple days later, she made someone get the recipe for her.
Really?
And then in retrospect, I was feeling kind of bad because here she'd lost 200 pounds, changed her life. Wonder if I'm the one to like put her on a trajectory.
Through St. Louis's famous gooey butter cake.
Yeah, she started binge eating again. I was really worried about that for a long time.
Well, we've got a lot more stories. I know there's some other celebrity interviews that you've done that I want to talk about, but we have to take a quick break. If you want to learn more, reach out to Steve. You can do so through his website, stephenpotter.net. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break and have more with Steve Potter right after this.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
I'm just going to answer yes.
I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. We have a great show for you today, and we're going to pick right back up. I'm talking to Steve Potter, longtime radio host at St. Louis Public Radio, who just had his last day last week. But
you might mention I've worked here for a while,
I know.
too.
So I was here. See, you're now turning into the interviewer. We got to make sure. I was going to get into this. The set is very familiar to you. The station's very familiar to you, as other people know that you host several shows here at STL-TV.
Well, over the years, the one I've hosted consistently, and I get all my years mixed up, is just about as long as I've been. It's been about 16 years. I could be off a year or two either way. Mm-hmm. I had been hosted, my first TV ever that I ever did was a year before that. And this shows you how technology has changed. You know, it was charter cable, kind of a magazine show that's called See Here. But you know how I found out about it?
How's that?
A want ad in the paper.
Oh, really?
I'm not kidding.
We actually have some photos. I'm probably jumping ahead, though, but we do have photos from some of the shows, because you've interviewed, again, I mean, just as many. You talked about all the people through radio and on TV, on the TV side. You've interviewed Christine Buck. And
Speaking of Caroline Kennedy, I did Maria Shriver on television. And
here for STL-TV or another?
No, that was charter cable, actually, for the See Here program. Yeah.
There we go. There's your Christine.
That's
a familiar side.
This was just recently in 2017. Christine Buck, who I think she received. You were involved in this, the Women of Achievement Awards.
Women of Achievement, yeah. And then just in general, I mean, you've interviewed so many people in your fun shows too, because you interview a lot of authors.
That's Joanne Cargus, I think. She did this Route 66 coloring book. I don't remember their names, but
Bob
I think it was photographs of, wasn't it from St. Louis locations?
Yeah. You've had your fair share. I want to make sure we jump back to your celebrity interviews, because you've done a lot, and I know we talked about Kathleen Turner, Jennifer Holliday, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Peter Yarrow?
Peter Yarrow.
Yarrow.
That was really cool because, I listened to them when I was young. I was born in 55, so in the late 60s, I was becoming a teenager, and Peter, Paul, Mary, and all that, and I loved their music. So I don't remember why he was in town, but he was. And I'll never forget the story. This was at our old studio, which was not as sophisticated as the one we have here. And they were very strict about musicians coming in. Before a musician could perform in our studio, we had to know ahead of time, and they'd make all this effort to put different mics and so forth. Well, Peter Yarrow walked in with his guitar, and he said he wanted to perform, and my producer said, no, we're not set up for it. And I said, Peter Yarrow walked in here with a guitar. He's playing. So he comes in, and not only did he play, it was one of the songs that they're famous for. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but he made up different words and put my name in it and performed on the radio. That was kind of thrilling.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's really good. And Hal Holbrook.
Hal Holbrook I've interviewed a couple times. And he's a good example of meeting a person that meant a lot to me personally. Someone I had a reason to think about when I was young. Number one, I was like Mark Twain, of course, but when I was going to high school in Springfield, Missouri, I was in the history club, and we used to do a lot of things. And I remember, this must have been like 1972, we drove from Springfield, Missouri, up to Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, because Hal Holbrook was there for Mark Twain Tonight. And we had a seat up close, and it was just magical to me. It touched me. He's fantastic. It was a big experience, and I was 15, and that was a big deal to be in Kiel Auditorium. And so go from 1972 to 2005 or whatever it was. And I get a call that the governor of Missouri is giving him some sort of award, and he's going to do a Hal Holbrook thing in Hannibal. And this group contacted me and wanted me to come up and do a live interview in front of an audience with him and everything. So I did that, and he was great. And we were up like in a balcony, second floor balcony, and the audience was below us. We're sitting in chairs, and I conduct this live interview for half an hour, whatever it was. And when it was done, they were having a reception down, and we had to go join the people at the reception. And we're alone together, and we walk down a hall, get in this elevator together, and the doors close. And his wife, Dixie Carter, I think she had just died maybe. And it was right before Christmas. And he asked me, first he said, I've enjoyed talking to you more than anyone in a long time. He goes, you're just great and stuff. Hal Holbrook, I'm like, well, thanks. And then he asked me about my Christmas plans. I was going to see my dad, and he told me he was on his way after this to New York to stay with Dixie's family. And it wasn't Hal Holbrook. It was like I was talking to you in an elevator. And it just made me think, from back when I was starstruck, in 1972 to here I am, he's asking me about my dad. So it's little stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty neat. I mean, to have a life, I think, where you are interacting with people you don't know, and as well as people you've admired. I mean, and was your approach when you interviewed them any different from the person who's the executive director of a nonprofit here to a total celebrity? No.
Nope.
Just always at ease.
People always ask me, like, weren't you scared, intimidated? And I never am.
Yeah. That's a good
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good quality to have. I want to kind of
Well, no, I think it's ego. It's like, I'm as good as, why would I be intimidated? I'm as good as they are.
Right. I'm like, that's so kind of you, and wow, that's such a great quality. You're like,
just being honest.
I want to shift gears because a lot of people who follow you on social media know, and not just people in general, know that you live in Alton. You're a proud Alton
I moved there
resident.
for a radio job. I'd never been there until I got a job there. I hosted the morning, they have a news talk station, WBGZ, and I hosted the morning show and an hour of Let's Talk for 8 years. And when I left there in the 90s, I'd bought a house there. It's near the river in the old Middletown section. There's the back of it. That's my 120-year-old black walnut tree. Anyway, when I stopped working there, I started working in St. Louis, and I loved it so much, I've commuted all these years.
Yeah.
Because I really do love Alton and the Middletown Historic District. These are garden updates about once.
And we should say garden updates
That's
literally
what
is what you call them.
I put these pictures on Facebook in capital letters, garden update, and it's a different shot of my garden, and I say something about it. And I thought that would be, I almost didn't do it because I always cringe when I see people's lunch or their cats.
Right.
I thought, putting pictures in my yard, is this going to be obnoxious too? But everywhere I go, they don't say anything. I put something important about my career in there. Never hear about that. They go, keep up those garden updates. They're my favorite.
Yeah.
So.
I think Alton is this sort of mystical city, right? I mean, it's got this really interesting history. It's got this aura about it, and I think people.
And we have a pretty going on nightlife.
Yeah, no, I mean, Alton's a great city, a great
which
town.
is in walking distance to my house.
Yeah. No, I know you're right in downtown. I don't want to
I'm on the edge of. Don't give out my
but
address.
I know.
I'm on the edge of Middletown, right by downtown, and it's in 5 minutes I can be to a dance bar.
Yeah.
And my favorite martini bar is in 10 minutes walk.
Yeah.
So I love that.
No, I think you've been a great sort of ambassador for the city, really, and people they enjoy your garden updates. And I want to get into another thing that a lot of people maybe don't know about acting. You have an acting career. You've kind of always
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a
something-
career.
Fine, a side. It's a kind of like your side thing, right?
Yeah.
Gigs? What
Yeah.
do you call them?
It could become a career.
It could become a
But
career.
I never acted at all till I'd been working at the Alton radio station. I was way into my mid-30s. I was afraid to even get up. But anyway, I did a segment with these people. They were putting on a production, a theater production. At the end of the interview, the director just looked at me and goes, I have a part in my play. You'd be perfect. Long story short, I decided to bite the bullet and try it, and it went well. After that, I acted in a play, usually 1 or 2 plays a year for about 10 years. Then I auditioned for a little film thing, and once I started that, I strictly do film work, and not Hollywood movies, of course.
Yeah.
But and I love it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Tell me about Eric Stanzi's films. So we've got some posters of those.
Well, Eric Stanzi is probably the kind of the biggest deal movie guy I've done stuff for. I've been in 3 of his. He's based in St. Louis. He does horror films, but he really has a worldwide fan base. Yes, no, he really does. And the first one I did was Deadwood Park, then Rat Line. In Memory of is his new one, which should be coming out, if not by the end of 2017, early. And I've only had, I'm not a recurring character in it, but I've always had a really important scene, just like me and the star. I'm not talking about background stuff. In Memory of, the lead actress, she's involved in some sort of horrific, bloody, horrifying murder.
I know, I saw the trailer. We couldn't show it on air.
No, you're thinking Rat Line.
Oh, you're talking about
Trailer for In
Got
Memory
it.
of isn't out yet. They're horror movies. They're all kind of like that. So she's involved in this horrible bloody murder, and she gets in the car and she's taking off on this cross-country escape. Just this insane flee from this horrible murder. And late one night, and during a very dark roadway, she pulls into an abandoned gas station. And I kind of come out from the shadows, and I'm sort of like a hitchhiker vagabond, and she gives me a ride. And well, you have to see the movie.
Yeah, we'll have to see the movie. I have a clip so people can just get a taste of it.
Not of this one, though.
No, not of this one. I have a clip. So to set this up, this is Evolve Your Documents Now.
It was
What
a commercial, and you're just showing part of it, right?
Yeah, just a part. Your part, one part.
It was just a commercial I auditioned for and got it. They were selling I even forget now what it was. Something to get people not to use copiers and some other kind of technology. So it's an office scene, and I'm the office boss, and some new employee is coming in. And this is just a little bit of the commercial.
Okay, all right, well, let's take
Hey, Jack, the new guy's here. Do you want me to send him in? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, send him in. Dan, I would like to welcome you to our office. Let me cut right to the chase. There is someone in this office that is out after my job. I don't know who it is. And if there's one more mishap on my part, I could get axed.
Sir,
Why don't you go make yourself comfortable, get acquainted with your cubicle, and would you warm up the copier in the records area too, please? Thank you.
You've got, I watched some of your other clips. You've got a good comedic timing. You're very aware. I mean, you do a great job. Has this been a great outlet for you? It's something you want to really continue to pursue now?
Yes. In fact, Eric stands. Well, no, I can't say that. There's a chance I could get a much bigger role in a movie coming up.
That's great.
But did you recognize that other character?
Yes, from here at the station.
Dan
yeah.
Paris, I don't know how long ago that was. I'm not sure, was he an intern or an employee? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was
a long time ago.
Yeah, he's done a variety of things here.
Well, he's gone on to do some very interesting film work and stuff. So anyway, that was Dan.
Well, in this last remaining minute, I mean, what's kind of
We only
next
have a
for
minute
you?
left?
I mean, close to it. And he's like,
Sarah, I've got a lot more to talk about.
That's going to be part 2, Steve
Okay.
Potter part 2, part
Okay.
3. But we'll make it a regular thing, each year. But
See you next week.
You talked about really the transition. I mean, you're going from being on air, pretty much every day and then every week. I mean, having your base of people and sort of now what's next? I mean, what's
That's
this
what I
next
don't
phase?
know. I'm taking a risk. Sometimes I think you have to take a chance or things don't change. And it's always very scary for me. And I only did it one time before. About 15 years ago, I quit a full-time job that I didn't like, and I had nothing lined up. And a week later, I got a job twice as good. So that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a chance.
Yeah, a chance. Well, if people want to find out more, they can kind of keep up with you through your
You know,
website.
you know how many jobs open?
We'll see. That'll be our part 2. But if you want to check out what Steve's going to be up to now that he is off the air, then go to stephenpotter.net. But stay tuned and follow him on social media,
Sarah,
too.
thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
No, thank you for coming on. It's really been a pleasure, and it's great
And I've worked
to have
with you forever. So.
I know. No, it's really great to talk to you. And best of luck in this next phase.
Thank you so much.
All
hug you later.
All right. And thank you at home for watching City Corner. And keep it right here on STL TV Experience St. Louis.